Good morning, everybody. Betting for breakfast, powered by the Sharp app. If you haven't downloaded the Sharp app now, make sure you go do that today as we get ready for college football season. I'm Mark Drumheller, and I'm back with Dave Gleckner. Dave, little smoother start to the show. Got the technical situation running smoothly now, so good to go. A lot better than last week, and we're going to continue our conversation here about college football. We got a couple win totals that we're looking at that we think could be some advantageous spots the way the market's at right now. I'm excited. Listen, we're talking about it now. It's the middle of summer, but before you know it, it's going to be week 0, man, and that's when the money starts flying.
It's awesome, man. Look, July 16th. We're talking 1 month away from really probably seeing some live football. So it's time to settle in. Markets have already moved a lot, and you know it, Drums. We've seen win totals increase. We've seen money come in on futures, such as winning the national title. USC skyrocketed downwards. Ohio State has as well. So if you haven't already started looking at some of this stuff, you could be a little late. So now's the time. Get in now right before the season because – I have a fear here. Some of the best values slipping through our grass. So let's get some out there today.
Yeah, even though it's volatile, it's going to settle as we get closer to the season. But there is a lot of opportunity to kind of cash in and get some pretty good numbers. People, like I said, it's summertime. They're sitting around. Listen, people love baseball. There's good stuff to bet on WNBA. But when they're able to sink their teeth into some college football lines, they can't wait. The power numbers are flying. People are ready to kind of take advantage and get into the season. Phil Steele's magazine comes out, Athlon, all the information's coming out now. So people are on the beach. They're doing their homework. And they're ready to put their money to work. So that's what we're going to do today. We're going to try and help everybody out a little bit. And Dave, I wanted to start with a team that is one of the most volatile markets, I think, out there when we look at it. And that is, the Arizona State Sun Devils and Herm Edwards. And they play to win the game. COVID, it doesn't matter. They're out there breaking all kinds of rules and stuff. And, it's been really a surprise to me. The direction of this program since Herm came and took over. I was always a big Herm Edwards fan, but it has been a dumpster fire to say the least. And, it's affecting the program, right? And this might be the last hurrah. And, Pierce moves on. They get him out of there. But if you look at it, I think they lost 5 coaches. 18 people hit the transfer portal. So players are just running for the hills when it comes to this team. Jalen Daniels gets out of there, goes to LSU, right? So, they got some questions at the quarterback spot with Emory Jones coming over from Florida. So this is kind of like the domino effect. We talked last week about, the big name quarterbacks that kind of, made a splash in the transfer portal, the Caleb Williams, the Dylan Gabriels, those guys. And then that just kind of trickles down. And now you're seeing kind of the impact, even teams like Florida, Arizona State, new program, new direction with new quarterbacks. So I think Emory Jones is interesting there. But the story here is, the players that they lost. And I want to talk a little bit now about where the market is, because this is a win total, Dave, that opened up at 7.5 in some spots when they opened the lines. And now you've seen it kind of plummet down to 5.5. Obviously, that under got pounded. And now at 5.5, you're seeing it juiced, minus 145 at BetMGM, plus 120 on the over at 5.5. So this team is the perfect example of the volatility that we were talking about. Opens at 7.5, gets pounded, everyone's pouring money in on the under because, let's be honest, this program's a dumpster fire right now. Now you're seeing, the question is for bettors, have we gone too far with the 5.5? Right. And, let's talk about the team. Like I said, they lost 5 coaches, both coordinators. Right. They bring in Brian Billick as a special advisor. Right. We all love the Ravens when they won the Super Bowl with Brian Billick, but that was a very long time ago. And that was at the professional level. So not sure what his contributions are, but I think we've seen this from Herm Edwards, bringing in a lot of old NFL faces. And it really just hasn't, delivered on the results I think that people were expecting.
Yeah, I think you're right. And it's not too surprising to see it drop. I mean, with Herm, listen, he's lucky to still have a job after all the, antics.
Yeah, of course.
COVID, right? And
this
then
is probably the last hurrah this year.
It is. And last year, they were one of those teams that a lot of people were bullish on at first with the talent that was coming back. But they knew with that locker room drama, They weren't that good. And here's the key that really hit me last year at Arizona State. They couldn't win close games. They found ways to turn the ball over. I mean, Daniels is out of there, obviously, but that's a reflection on the coaching staff, too. So when you say it's dropped, has it gone too far? I'm not quite sure it has. And then when you look at the schedule, I mean, maybe you got one on there with Northern Arizona. After that, Stanford's better.
There's some spots. I mean, you get Eastern Michigan, you get Colorado, which is it's funny because we look at Colorado and Arizona, right? We look at them and you're usually like win-win with every team, right? But I think the issue is you talked about this Arizona State team and the turnover problems, right? Now they bring in Emory Jones, right? Who loves giving the ball away, right? It turned out that's probably his weakness, right? So now, they want to run a conservative offense, run heavy, offensively, running the football, they were very good. I think they were third nationally EPA per rush. So they want that conservative, old school football, grind it out kind of thing, but they're a team that's sloppy. They turn the ball over, so it doesn't equate to wins. And you look at teams like Colorado, Arizona, should be wins on the schedule, right? But Arizona State is the epitome of the type of team that loses those letdown games.
So, yeah, they really are. I mean, you think about the bowl game last year, playing an awful Wisconsin team. They somehow find a way to lose that game late when they had the lead early. They just find ways to lose. And that's why those two games that you mentioned, yes, they should be wins, but yes, they're away. And I think they're tougher games are at home, easier games on the road. That doesn't really help a team that needs to get around 5.5. I don't know where you're at, but I find this to be a tough spot.
To be honest, I think they might have gone too far with the 5.5. Yeah. I think if I had to handicap it, like, hey, probably a 6-16, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Probably a 6-win team. I think 7.5 was insane. They got pounded rightfully for that. 6.5, probably juice to the over is probably, or 6.5. I mean, juice to the under is probably the right play here. Like that's where I would line it because I think it's probably a 6-win team. Do they have the talent to get 7 with the schedule? Schedule's kind of easy. Yeah, but I think that what bettors need to be cautious of here, Dave, and we've seen this before with certain teams, especially in this situation, they have a bottomless floor. Like it could all fall out. You know what I mean? Like this could be, a really, really bad year for Arizona State. But I think, with the 5.5, I would like the over, but not at this price. Like not paying, like I'm not going to pay minus 145 at BetMGM to play over 5.5 on this Arizona State team. I think the way it's lined right now, I probably lean towards the under at the 5.5. But like I said, they could be a 6-win team. I would sit and wait at this point, see if it gets back to that 6.5, or even if I know some markets like books like Caesars or whatnot has the even numbers, you might be able to get a 6 there. If you can get a 6 there, maybe try to play that to the under. That way it gives you a little push protection. But, I think they're a fascinating team. And like I said, the big thing is to me is the bottom could really fall out and it could be a 1-win team. And I wouldn't be surprised. Now Herm gets fired,
Wow. Yeah.
I mean, listen, like
it's possible. No, I hear you.
You have all these people flee into the transfer portal. You have, this is a give up team. Like if things don't go right, like this is the team that's going to give up. And you could see them, just the bottom really fall out. I think it depends because, I don't know. Like if they fire Herm mid-season, they bring someone in. Does that person produce a spark and get the most and get people back on board? So maybe that type of floor might be out of reach, but I think it could get really bad for the Arizona State Sun Devils. But, where it's at now, 5.5, I think they went a little too far, but I'm not playing the over at minus 145. I would just wait till it gets back to 6.5, and then try and play it the other way down.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we're on the same side on that one. It's a team I don't feel has a lot of momentum, and it could unravel quick, like you said. So keep an eye on it for sure. 6.5 is an absolute under for me. 5.5,
yeah, definitely.
I want to wait a little bit.
Yeah, I agree with you. Secondary stinks. Like they lost, I think all 4 the people in their secondary. Like they have some challenges. And like I said, I'm not really sold on Emory Jones, especially as a fit in that offensive scheme. And then bringing Brian Billick, and I don't know, man. It just seems like they're grasping at straws there. But so that's where we're at with Arizona State. But I think it's very interesting for bettors to see. Open very early at 7.5. Obviously, one-way money pushing it down, almost 2 full wins with Arizona State, and I think rightfully so. I think it's going to be big problems for Herm, and it's disappointing because I'm a Herm fan. But let's move on to the Florida State Seminoles, Dave, a team that was near and dear to your heart for a lot of years. What are you looking at with them? Big year for them, I think, to try and kind of like get back to what they were. They show some promise, and then you kind of see some letdown, a little bit back and forth. What is your outlook for them for this upcoming season?
To be honest with you, it's actually pretty good, and that's why I've kind of lasered in my focus on them, not just because of near and dear to the heart, but we're looking at a conference in the ACC that you can often find a lot of value in win totals because they do fluctuate year to year pretty strongly. Let's just look at Pitt last year. When we were doing this show, I had them as a potential dark horse to win that conference, and they got there. Wake Forest was a big over too. Some other teams, NC State, hung in there. So there is some volatility, I should say, in the ACC. So you got to find some teams that you think are on the up and coming. And I think Florida State's one of them. Finished the season last year 5-2. Once they finally dialed in on the quarterback in Jordan Travis, they finally had an identity on offense. Now, that's funny to say identity when you finish 94th in offensive success rate, but it is true. Once they got rolling, they at least found some, consistency there and got used to him. He is a running quarterback, but does have a strong arm, can complete the long ball. They got some transfers in, one receiver out from Oregon coming over here. So they have a lot of things that they can do on offense here. And when they got in the red zone, they scored 90% of the time, converted touchdown 74%. So with that dynamic quarterback, I really think they have a long way to go, but he's going to bring them something. And their weakest part last year was the offense. Now, when we look at the schedule, couple coin flips, and that's really what you look at with win totals. Duquesne early on, they should get. The key will be the LSU Louisville stretch. Going to LSU, I say going. They are playing the Superdome. Right now, LSU is a 3-point favorite. That's a coin flip to me. That's a home field advantage, 3. And then you have Louisville the next week. So if they can split those games there, I think they're well on their way to over 6.5 and to get to the bowl for the first time since 2019.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. I love it. I would love to see them back on the scene. It was a lot better. I remember the old Miami-Florida State rivalry, and now you're seeing Cristobal get to Miami, and we're seeing, in the ACC, like I said, a lot of, movement, right? As far as like, a lot of new faces, and it's going to be fun in the upcoming years, and especially this season. And I think that's always a conference that's pretty exciting. And I think with Cristobal coming to Miami and doing the things he's doing, Van Dyke, I know a lot of people are high on. Showed a lot of promise last year. Lost me money betting against him a couple times. So, I got my eye on that guy. But for sure,
they're live. Miami's very live in the ACC. I think they're live to win the ACC. So that's another team you could look at win total. That'll be a tough game. Florida State has to travel there, but there are other 2 tough ones. Clemson and Florida both come to Tallahassee. I don't know where we are on Clemson yet. I got to dig a little further.
I think we might be in the same spot, man. Like I don't like. I think you might be right. Dominating defense, dominating up front, ton of players, no quarterback. Like like how long are they going to ride with DJ? Like I'm not convinced that this was like he was bad. And listen, I loved him coming out. I was like, oh yeah,
that game in Notre Dame 2 years ago. Oh.
Yeah, brutal. Yeah, but I don't know, man. I don't know if he's able to kind of spin the wheels there. So I do think that the ACC is a little right now. Listen, Clemson, they're going to win plenty of games, right? They're not going to like fall off the cliff. But it's I think they could. ACC could be had by the right team, and I think Miami might be that team. We'll talk a little bit more about them later. But let's fire up another team. I think that's polarizing. I know I use that word a lot, but I think that you get a lot of differing opinions, right? It's the the data tells me this, the on-field play tells me this, There's a big wide gap between the two, and there's a lot of pointing fingers as far as who's to blame, and that's the Nebraska Cornhuskers. This is a team that has consistently underachieved under Scott Frost, and now we look at them and everybody says it. Hey, man, roster wise, recruiting wise, they are great. They are the best team off the bus. We have a 7.5 win total here at BetMGM, juice to -125. To the over. The under is plus 105. So you're getting some plus money value on the under for a team that won 3 games last year. So when I look at them, I think that it's interesting because it's kind of like everybody's coming into this season. I feel like the people that are behind Nebraska, that like Nebraska, just think there's too much talent to keep messing up, that it's like an anomaly. And, like I said, from a roster up and down, just on paper, they're a pretty strong team. They should go over this win total, but they find a way to lose. And I think Adrian Martinez now at Kansas State, he took a lot of heat for that. Right. Wasn't maybe the perfect fit for the offense, maybe tried to do some YOLO hero stuff out there and, made some costly turnovers. But, when you look at this team, Casey Thompson comes over, at quarterback. And, I just think that there's more to it than Adrian Martinez. Like, I think this is a Scott Frost team. I think when you're there with a program a couple years, the team kind of takes the identity of the coach and, them finding ways to lose games that they shouldn't, them finding ways to lose close games. I think that's a reflection to Scott Frost, and I think he's still there. I think this is going to be his last year here. I think getting the under at 7.5 of plus money is a solid play. When I look at Nebraska, we can talk about the schedule, Dave, and how they start. And, they start in Ireland against Northwestern. Right. And then they get North Dakota, an FCS team. So everybody's like, oh, they're going to get off to a great start. Win, win, win. Listen, I cashed in with Illinois last year when they lost to Illinois. I know, like they lose these types of games, just like Arizona State we kind of talked about. So I don't think these are gimmies in the beginning of the season. Northwestern, listen, they got eviscerated by Nebraska last year, but before that rivalry usually plays each other pretty close. You know what I mean? And so, it's in Ireland. It's kind of like a weird situation. I don't know, dude. Maybe they lose that game and then their backs against the wall against the FCS team. They're going to be a huge favorite that they should win. But, who knows? I mean, they, like I said, they got Georgia Southern on the schedule and then they're 3-0 and they go to Oklahoma. Everybody acts like that's the big showdown. They're going to get the brakes beat off them by Oklahoma. Like, that's not even like their goal is they need to win at least 2 of those 3 games. So they leave that first 4-game stretch 2-2, because if they're 1-3, he's getting canned.
Yeah. He's so close. I mean, it was surprising. I talked to a few friends that are Nebraska fans, actually. Mm-hmm. They were surprised that Frost, retained the job after last season. It's been going on too long. And it's funny that you have a similar theme here. These coaches that may have, could get fired early on, that may have extended their stay, are really teams that you're looking to pounce on. I love it. Nebraska is a team for me that is almost auto fade as long as Frost is there. They can do what they want. Martinez was a disaster, but like you said, that only gives you false hope. I think that's trying to cover the problem. That's not trying to fix the problem. The problem's Frost, and I'm with you. I think this is tough.
If somebody had to ask me, like, if they were like, who do you think will show better this year, Frost in Nebraska or Adrian Martinez in Kansas State? I got to go Martinez. I think that the way they build that offense is kind of fits him a little bit better at Kansas State. Like we can talk about, that team later, but I think that, he's a better fit there. And listen, he's not going to go there and be a whole new quarterback. Like, he's still probably going to have some turnovers. He's still going to have his warts. But I think that the issues with Nebraska are much, much bigger than him. Like, this is a Scott Frost issue. This is a game management issue. This is a, just identity of the program issue. And, I think they need to kind of get rid of him. It's not the players. They have the players. It just doesn't produce. But I feel like in the betting market, we're seeing some people kind of just think that, like, hey, this is what the data bears out. They should win X amount of games. They got the players. It's got to happen. But I'm not sold, man. I think Scott Frost, can kill all that. Like I said, I saw enough last year, those games against Illinois. They just lost so many games they should have won. And it was like, we went into that game like, hey, Illinois with the points is good. Like Scott Frost not going to blow anyone out. Like, you know what I mean? He always messes up, makes the game close, and they got smoked. Like they got smoked in that game by a bad Illinois team. So I like the under here if you can get it at plus money with Nebraska. I'll fade them, all the way down. Probably fade them in week 1. I mean, we'll look at that number, but I think they're pretty big pretty big favorites. I want to say it's like 12 points or something. I don't know offhand, but I think they're pretty big favorites there. So they're definitely an early season fade, and Lord knows what happens after the first month of the season.
Yeah, I think it's a good pick, and it's something that we'll continue to look at. But I have zero confidence they can go 8-4. I mean, I'll have to look at it tighter, but I like your pick there. So there's another popular team out there, and maybe popular on the other side, just a little east of Nebraska, and that's the Blue Cats. I should call them the Wildcats. That's Kentucky, and I think Kentucky has a lot of noise this year, Drums, and I think for good reason. That bowl game win against Iowa was very impressive. Late drive, they win 20-17 in the Citrus Bowl, 4 straight bowl win. Mark Stoops just has that personality, that dog in him, I love to say. And this year, he adds a really key piece to his team and his coaching staff. He robs from the McVay tree and the Shanahan tree and goes out and gets Rich Scangarello. I think he was the offense coordinator for the 49ers under Shanahan. So he's bringing in some new talent, some new perspectives. And for a guy like Will Levis, this can only reap the benefits. A guy that's projected potentially in the top 10 in the NFL draft. He's going to be in the Heisman talks all year, especially if the team performs. So now you got this pro quarterback, pro coach coming in to coach a potential pro quarterback. I think the sky's the limit. Yes, they lost Wan'Dale Robinson, but they brought in a guy from Virginia Tech, Tavion Robinson. They have a few freshman receivers that they're really high on. Great running back, Chris Rodriguez Jr. could break Benny Snell's record this year, the team record in rushing. So there's a lot of good things. And then let's not forget, Kentucky was top 15 defense in almost every category last year, including Havoc, which we love. And here they go. They're bringing back 80% of their starters. So it's a team that I think is getting a lot of smoke and a lot of support. But at 7.5, I love this total. They have a really key game early in the season. It's week 2 against Florida. But it's sandwiched around 3 other easy games. They could be looking at 4-0 going into October. And I really like their chances to potentially even give Georgia a little run on this side. I still think Georgia's the class, but I really like Kentucky this year, and I'm buying in.
Yeah, I think so too, man. I think that, that like second tier of SEC teams is really interesting, because I think they have a lot of talent, and the main question is like, the schedule, like getting through the schedule. But I like Kentucky. I think it's 7.5, Dave. I think you're on to something. I think they showed a lot. They're a team that got progressively better as the year went on, and I think it's a big year for Levis. And if he can kind of rise to the occasion, and do what they kind of brought him in, they're a long way from, what was it, Terry Wilson? They used to run the ball every play, and it was like, so they can get some stuff done. They got some playmakers on offense, and I like it. I think it's definitely a good play. And another team in the SEC I want to talk about, Dave. As we get into the back end, there's one more team, and another 7.5 win total. And that's the Tennessee Volunteers, right? So, I think the Vols and that matchup against, Kentucky is going to be big in this sense when I talk about their win total at 7.5. Now, this is juiced money pouring in on the over here, minus 175, that I'm not positive I agree with. I think, it's not that Tennessee, I think, is a fade, but I think getting that under 7.5 at plus 145, getting at that number, over at BetMGM can be, have some value. When we look at this Tennessee team, I think, they surprised everybody last year, right? So, they put up a ton of points. Josh Heupel comes in, and boom, all over it. I thought they were a play on last year. I thought they could sneak up on some teams and do that kind of stuff. They have Hendon Hooker, Heisman candidate. I think he's a little bit of a long shot, but, wouldn't be my pick to win the Heisman. But he's in there. He's got Cedric Wilson, dynamic wide receiver. They can get the job done. We know they're going to move fast, right? This is like Chip Kelly stuff, move fast, put up a ton of points, and dictate the pace of the game against your opponents. And I think that stuff is probably at its best in its first year, right? And then, the teams get the off season, especially when you're looking at the talent from a coaching perspective that's in the SEC from a defensive side. Like these coaches get a year to look at it. They get a year to kind of adjust. And I think what really worries me about this Tennessee team is the other side of the ball. They were absolutely atrocious, especially, as a pass defense. When you look at Tennessee, outside of the top 100 in explosive plays allowed at 20 plus yards, outside of the top 100 in points allowed per possession, 122nd in the country in pass defense, last in the SEC. We can just go back to the bowl game against Purdue. I was backing them, lost money. Maybe I'm still a little bitter. I don't know. Aiden O'Connell throws for 530 yards or something. Just completely did whatever he wanted against that defense. Now listen, Aiden O'Connell, I think we're going to see him progress, and he's going to get much better as a quarterback, but he's not Bryce Young. 534 yards is a lot of yards, man. So, and I don't think they did really much to improve that secondary. And that's, when you look at their schedule, right? You get Bama, you get Georgia, you're at Georgia. You get Kentucky and Florida at home, but those are tough games. Napier's in Florida now, right? So, at LSU, and then even like at Pitt, at South Carolina.
And
those
South
are not.
No.
Yeah,
Carolina.
South Carolina.
They're 5-2. You just named 4 coin flips. They got to win 3 of those to get there. I mean, I don't think it happens. I'm with you. I didn't mean to cut you off, but you were going right down that team. Yeah,
totally cool, man. You look at the schedule, and like I said, South Carolina, like everyone's like, oh, they should definitely beat South Carolina, mark that off as a win. But let's look at the two teams and how they play, right? Like South Carolina, very, very good in the trenches. They're going to, want to slow that game down. And you know what I mean? So it'll be kind of like a contrast to where if they're on the road and they're not, prepared, they're not up for that game against South Carolina. I don't know exactly where in the schedule it falls, but, who knows? Maybe they're banged up a little bit. I just think that it's, this is a team overachieved last year, and now we're getting a little carried away, right?
Yes.
The market's getting a little carried away with them with the over 7.5 juice like that. So I think, the under 7.5 plus 145, I think it's a solid play. This secondary Swiss cheese, man. And I think the SEC, those teams can light you up. And I think you're going to see a lot of that against the Vols.
I think that's a great call. I think they were one team I've circled to really look to fade this year. And a lot of it is the added hype. When offenses come and they shine, and then all of a sudden you're like, wow, this team's got a lot going on. Those tend to get overvalued in the market, especially by casual bettors. So I think Tennessee is falling right into that trap. People saw a couple, big offensive explosions. They think they're on the right track. I'm with you. I just think, I mentioned it. There's 5 kind of easy games. I know it's like Missouri, Vanderbilt, UT Martin, a couple Ball States. Okay, I give them 5. But you're telling me they got to win 3 against the class of the SEC to get to 8, and I just can't see it. Even the games, like you said, Florida and Kentucky in Knoxville, Kentucky plays that kind of beast defense. I just think that can shut that side down. They run all day. And then Florida, yeah, maybe, but still, you got to find me 2 others, and I can't see it being LSU or some other teams on the road, like you said.
Yeah, and like I said, I mean, last year I think as a dog they were 1-5 against the spread. So I think overall, like when you look at the season, is like, hey, like they overachieved when they played teams that were better than them. Like they weren't sneaking up on anybody. Like I think that it's so I think you can kind of see there's a ceiling there, and like I said, I think the market's getting a little carried away with Tennessee. The offense is exciting, absolutely. They're a lot of fun to watch unless you're laying points with them, because they can't stop anybody. So, let's wrap things up with one more, Dave. I know you got very, very interesting team. This is a team I looked at as well. Why don't you, finish things off here for the people?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about blue. You know what goes with blue in a lot of cases? Orange. And I'm going to talk about the Syracuse Orangemen. And listen, you're talking about a team last year that was 5-7, but lost 3 heartbreakers at the end of the season: Florida State, Wake Forest, and I think it was NC State, or Clemson, all by 3 points at the end. They were that close to an 8-win team. And then now you're getting a 4.5. And that 4.5 win total just seems very easy when you have to look at who they're bringing back. quarterback, running back. They have the returning 75% of their starters. Dino Babers has flipped over his coaching staff. Really looks like he's starting to improve this team. I know he's had a lot of hope coming in. He had that 110-win season. Everything else has been under 500, but I think they're going to fly under the radar. Look at their late season success last year. Look at what they're returning. Look at that grinded out power football style. I think we got a great chance to go over that 4.5. Syracuse is the team I'm definitely going to play the over. I think they have some high potential, again, in a volatile ACC.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the big key for them is going to be like the quarterback position. Now, I like the 4.5. I think it opened. I think earlier I saw 5.5, which I thought, might be a little sketchy. Like the over on the 4.5 for sure, though. This is a team that plays a lot of close games, and their main question is going to be that quarterback position, right? So, Garrett Schrader, had some really ugly games towards the last year, but they brought, the kid in from Florida to compete with them, the freshman who's got loads of talent. So I think, early in the season, they might struggle a little bit, but I think you're going to see things kind of come around for them. And like you said, they're always in close games. They're always there. So I think at 4.5, I mean, if, especially if they get Schrader out of there and like Rio Wilson's ready to go and they can get him in there and really make the offense a little bit more dynamic, it could be, it could be big things. They're a program, I feel like, that always kind of struggled to get that like top quarterback. And the fact that they're able to get this kid from Florida, I think, you could see kind of like, a changing of the way the offense is, shaped.
Yeah, and a new quarterback coach coming over from Virginia once Mendenhall left, that team kind of unraveled. And there's already 2 automatic wins on the schedule. Some of the worst teams in Wagner and Connecticut. So you're looking for 3 others. There's a flip.
Jimmy Moore, right? Isn't Jimmy Moore at Connecticut?
Yes.
That team. Watch out. He'll sting you.
Yeah, watch out. But yeah, I think 4.5 just seems like a gift, especially when they hit the 5 last year, bringing all this back. Yep. You
mentioned a lot of continuity.
Yeah. So Syracuse, another ACC. I'm living in the ACC, but love them and their win total over.
Awesome. Well, this was good stuff, man. We got through about 6 teams. We'll be back next week to do it again. We'll just, randomly, I think we're just going to be going through, picking some spots on some teams as we get closer to the season. Then as we get into August, we're going to start talking about week 0. We're going to talking about spots there in week 0, week 1, ways that we can kind of get in front of the market, get in front of the lines in those games, from a totals and a side perspective. So lots of good stuff coming up. We definitely appreciate everybody tuning in. We will be back next week. Like I said, we're going to do it again. So if you guys have any teams you want us to touch on, just drop them in the comments, dude. We'll definitely come back. We'll fire them up. We'll put them on the menu for next week. So, thanks to everyone for tuning in. I'm Mark Drumheller. This is Dave Gleckner. Enjoy the week. Get some winners and download the Sharp app. Plenty of free plays in there. Plenty of great content and education. So make sure you download the Sharp app, hop in the Discord, and be a part of the community. We'll see you guys next week.